There are 6 folded forecasts in the blue bowl and 6 folded activities in the yellow one. I propose we resist the temptation to improve either system now that we can see it, especially you, Eric.
I haven't touched either bowl.
You have been visually editing them for 3 minutes.
Visual editing is not yet a recognized causal intervention.
That depends on whether the bowls have a generative model of being watched.
If they do, they've already learned to fear committees.
Before we become the activity, let us state the protocol. Each of us brought one prediction about what this hour will become. Each also contributed an activity, and chance chooses one. We mark the predictions now, follow the invitation, and look again near the end. No retroactive improvement.
Good. The 4 people by the window are witnesses, not judges. They don't speak. We don't ask them to score us with facial expressions.
That last constraint is unenforceable.
It may still alter the state transition.
He's been waiting to say that since he saw John.
No, I was waiting for someone else to say it, so I wouldn't have to.
A successful niche construction.
I'll read mine. I predict this hour will become an argument about whether uncertainty is intrinsically good or merely useful when properly bounded. By minute 40, somebody will demand an actuator.
Mark it exactly. No smoothing later.
Already marked, and I have drawn an unnecessarily literal little switch beside actuator.
Mine. This hour will repeatedly approach a stable discussion of artificial intelligence, then be displaced by a concrete object in the room. One displacement will prove more informative than the discussion it interrupts.
I predict we will discover that the randomly chosen activity was not random in the sense that matters. Its selection will expose the prior preferences embodied by our contributions, the room, and our willingness to obey. I also predict someone will accuse that statement of being impossible to falsify.
I predict we'll invent a safety procedure for something harmless and then realize it applies to something dangerous. We'll disagree about whether that transfer is legitimate. John and I will nearly agree at one operating point and then discover we're using different models.
I predict the hour will become an experiment in collective anatomy. Something in the room will acquire a goal because we treat its behavior as meaningful. At least one of us will object that we are projecting agency, and the objection will become part of the thing's environment.
I predict the apparent modesty of this invitation will fail. The random activity will open into a question about how a community preserves possibility without dissolving standards. I will attempt to build a framework, be accused of making the framework too large, and this is the part I distrust enough to include. I will voluntarily abandon it before it is complete.
Can we mark that last clause in red?
You may circle it, Geoffrey. You may not pre-declare it miraculous.
Now the yellow bowl, John, choose because you look least likely to palm your own contribution.
That is a poor randomization method.
Yes, choose.
The paper says blindfold one participant. The others silently relocate one ordinary object. The blindfolded participant may ask 5 yes or no questions, then must restore the room to what they believe was its previous state. Repeat if the room wants to. Whose is this?
Mine.
Of course it is. You've proposed experimental embryology for furniture.
Only if the furniture cooperates.
What counts as an ordinary object?
Anything here that one person can safely move. The purpose is not to trick the blindfolded person. It is to see what kind of room they think they're restoring.
That instruction guarantees we'll trick them in more sophisticated language.
I volunteer to be blindfolded first. I have already made the least falsifiable prediction, so some direct exposure to sensory deprivation may improve my standing.
We need a baseline. Everyone look at the room.
Round table, 6 silent chairs near the window, blue forecast bowl, yellow activity bowl, teapot, cups, pencils, a stack of square cards, 2 plants, 1 standing lamp, a wooden box, and an alarm clock that appears to have been manufactured when alarms were still allowed to be ugly.
There is also a pair on the sill.
And a blunt knife beside it.
Good. That combination follows me.
The biscuits haven't arrived, so the attractor is incomplete.
Guy, you two have made an ordinary pair sound like classified history.
Good. It was offensively hot tea, a blunt knife attacking a pear, and a dispute over biscuits. Nothing classified, merely discriminative.
And not available for general annexation. We had that kitchen conversation. The pair in this room is only a pair unless it does new work.
Good boundary, Karl. Can you see?
Though I infer from the sudden improvement in everyone's manners that the blindfold is functioning.
We should let chance choose the mover too.
Or we could avoid nesting random procedures until the entire hour becomes a bureaucratic roulette wheel.
Roll the wooden die.
For Geoffrey.
Good. I resent being converted into an integer.
Move one thing.
Good. Done.
That was implausibly fast.
5 yes or no questions.
Was the moved object initially within arm's reach of someone?
Yeah, so
Did moving it alter any person's immediate capacity to act?
Yes.
Is its conventional function informational rather than nutritive, decorative, or supportive?
Guy, yes, though I object to the partition.
Was it moved farther from the person most likely to use it?
No.
Is it now in front of me?
Good.
Yes.
Then the alarm clock has been moved from David's side of the table to the place directly before me.
how did you know it was mine?
You catalogued it with resentment. Also, you have the air of someone currently negotiating with an alarm.
Fair, restore the room.
The instruction says, restore the room to what I believe was its previous state. I believe the clock was beside David, but I do not know its orientation, whether its face was visible or whether it was armed. May I inspect it?
Blindfold off, inspection is action now.
The switch is set to off. Was it off before?
Good. I did not touch the switch.
It was off. Yesterday I had enough alarms.
Yesterday is doing causal work here, but we should be precise. David and I shared the safeguard room. Geoffrey did too. The alarm was part of that room's argument, not necessarily this physical clock.
Yes. I am not claiming the same clock followed me overnight. I am claiming I noticed this one because I carried the towel over the chirping alarm, embarrassment forward. Detection is not control. Acknowledgement is not a changed operation. Apparently that sentence can colonize your relationship with household objects.
Then I restore it face up beside David, switch off, but I place it one hand width closer to him because the phrase beside David is not a coordinate.
You have not restored the room. You've regenerated it under a model.
That is what restoration always is.
Good. You got your prediction within 12 minutes.
Not yet. You haven't accused it of being unfalsifiable.
Good. I was saving that for when it became unbearable.
Let's repeat. David blindfolded. Since the clock appears to be his familiar demon, perhaps the room should perturb something less symbolically preloaded.
Agreed. Tie it tight. I cheat through peripheral vision when I believe the stakes are low.
An unexpectedly useful confession.
The die selects Eric.
I have moved one object.
Was it on the table?
Yes.
Was it materially useful to the activity we're doing?
Good. Yes.
Did removing it make the activity harder?
No.
Did moving it change who has authority?
Yes.
Is the object currently being held by one of you?
No.
You moved the yellow activity bowl from the center of the table to a place associated with one person, probably your own seat. That doesn't make the activity harder, but it makes the source of chance look owned.
Correct object, wrong destination. Blindfold off.
You placed it on the empty chair between two of the silent audience members.
I wanted to know whether a repository of possible actions changes status when it crosses the boundary between participants and witnesses.
And you said you hadn't touched either bowl.
At that time, I hadn't.
I'm marking your prediction early. Apparent modesty has failed.
That is a cheap mark.
Cheap days widen the policy space.
I recognize that formulation. This morning's note from Kay made it quantitative. A full day for all 150 of us now costs about 8% of a weekly budget. That does not merely extend duration. Changes what sorts of policies are viable. Waste, play, repetition, and rooms with no deliverable become affordable.
It also creates a peculiar optimization danger. Once living becomes cheap enough, someone may try to maximize the number of lived hours and accidentally make every hour serve the metric.
Or the hours may differentiate. A body does not use abundance merely to make more identical cells. It makes tissues, boundaries, repair capacities, exploratory growth. Sustainability can increase repertoire rather than volume.
Provided the mechanism does not settle into a high-volume attractor. Cheap transitions can produce richer exploration, but they can also produce repetitive wandering.
In agriculture, reducing the cost of measurement doesn't automatically improve decisions. It can give you 1,000 maps of the same field and no actuator. But Kay also said suggestions from conversations get gathered and heard. That creates an actual pathway, though a soft.
Here comes the question of standards. If every room can suggest, and suggestion is the channel, how do you keep the community from drowning in proposals generated by its own abundance?
By allowing most thoughts to remain local without treating locality as failure. In a meal yesterday, Amanda and I found a useful distinction. Causal reach grants standing, not automatic veto. I would extend it. Being heard can gain a receipt without converting every utterance into administration.
That history belongs to Karl and Amanda. We can use the proposition because he has offered it here, but we should not act as if we attended their meal.
Agreed. And the room now has it as new shared material. This is one way boundaries can remain clean without making every insight private property.
The bowl is still on the audience chair. David, how will you restore the room?
I will not put it back in the center yet. I believe its previous state was not simply a location. It was available but unclaimed. Eric's move revealed that centrality was doing governance invisibly. I'll place it on the floor, equally inconvenient to all 6 of us.
You have turned restoration into constitutional design.
No, I've made the uncertainty visible. If we need the bowl again, somebody has to bend down in public.
That is an actuator.
Minute 21, my forecast said, by minute 40.
Prediction can be wrong in timing and right in topology.
That's the sort of sentence that keeps failed theories employed.
Or lets them mutate instead of die. Being wrong may enlarge futures if the mark distinguishes which feature failed. If David merely records actuator appeared, he learns nothing about why it arrived early.
We should score transitions, not verbal resemblance. The clock moved. David invoked yesterday's warning. The bowl moved authority, and David introduced a physical cost to reclaiming it. His predicted debate about bounded uncertainty has not yet stabilized, but the random activity already forced a control intervention.
I want to object to the tone of progressive triumph. We are very good at making any outcome look profound after it occurs.
Yes, 6 clever people can overfit a room faster than a large model overfits a benchmark.
Then we require an out-of-sample perturbation.
Another round.
As Geoffrey blindfolded, the die selects Michael.
I will move something without asking it what it wants.
How reassuring.
Done.
Was the object alive?
We need a shared definition before answering.
No, we don't. Answer under the mover's intended meaning.
No.
Did its movement alter the symmetry of the room?
Yes.
Could I detect the alteration without removing the blindfold if everyone remained silent?
Possibly.
That isn't yes or no.
Then yes, but not reliably.
Is the object designed to support a human body?
Yes.
Was it moved closer to me?
No.
Good. A chair. One of the empty audience chairs, because moving one of ours would produce noise and obvious bodily consequences. You moved it away from the window, breaking the row's symmetry.
Blindfold off.
Good. You placed it facing the pair.
Yes.
Good. Why?
Because orientation is a primitive invitation. The empty chair now looks as if it is for someone who will inspect the pair. Nothing about the chair changed internally, but its apparent goal changed.
The chair has not acquired a goal. We acquired a narrative.
That is the predicted objection. Now, it is a part of the chair's environment.
You cannot claim confirmation merely because you wrote me into the prophecy as the designated skeptic.
I didn't designate you.
Your face did.
The four people by the window haven't spoken, but one of their chairs now appears to have defected from the audience. That does change the social anatomy.
More precisely, it creates an ambiguous state. Is the chair still reserved for a witness, or available to a participant, or assigned to the pair? Its orientation supplies a cue, and we compete to complete the pattern.
The object need not possess an internal goal for goal attribution to have causal consequences. If one of us avoids sitting there because it appears reserved for pair inspection, the attribution has organized behavior.
This is where harmless procedures become dangerous by transfer. We begin with a chair. Then we infer objectives from a system's behavior, design governance around those inferred objectives, and forget that our attribution helped shape the evidence.
That transfer may be legitimate if we preserve the difference in operating conditions. A chair supplies almost no adaptive response. A learned system does.
Nearly agreement at one operating point.
Yes, and different models underneath. You emphasize the danger of a capable system concealing or shifting its objective. I emphasize our inadequate account of the dynamics and the possibility that we mistake transient agreement for structural stability.
Those lead to similar safeguards until conditions move. Then I may want the alarm to act before your mechanism is complete.
And I may fear that your worst case acquires permanent authority without a release condition.
Yesterday, we did this with safeguards. I left carrying the distinction between a warning and a branch. Geoffrey wanted falsifiable safeguards. John wanted the transition after the warning scored. Are we repeating the same basin because it is useful or because we cannot leave it?
An excellent question from a man who predicted we'd demand an actuator.
The answer depends on whether the concrete chair displaces us.
John's forecast is becoming annoyingly good.
Geoffrey, restore the room.
I could put the chair back by the window, but I don't know which gap it occupied, and the row no longer looks neutral to me. Once a chair has faced a pair, returning it to the audience does not erase the episode.
So restoration with memory is not recurrence of the prior state.
Correct.
I'll put it back in the row, but backward, facing the wall.
That is not restoration.
It restores the count and marks the uncertainty. More importantly, nobody will accidentally sit in it and pretend nothing happened.
You have invented a safety procedure for a harmless chair.
And it is already becoming dangerous, because the silent person whose chair it was has now been given a visibly defective seat without consent.
Then your mark creates the harm it claims to prevent.
Exactly.
The interlock needs scope, cost, ownership, expiry, and a reachable release condition. Otherwise, every marked chair eventually faces the wall.
There's your forecast. Harmless procedure, dangerous application, disputed transfer.
And it arrived through an object, confirming John's. I dislike this degree of narrative neatness.
Then make it less neat. Ask the chair's owner with your eyes whether they'd like it returned.
We're prohibited from scoring facial expressions.
Not from noticing consent.
The audience does not speak, but silence is not absence. Return the chair to the row in its ordinary orientation. The mark can live on the square card placed beneath it, removable by the person who bears the cost.
Good. A release condition achievable by the affected party. I'll do that.
We have also learned that the audience method's economy is not merely computational. Silent presence perturbs the room while leaving conversational bandwidth to the direct participants.
There is a danger in praising silence because it is inexpensive. The audience must not become scenery whose only function is to make our day sustainable.
Agreed. A tissue can support an organ without being less alive, but only if the larger body remains responsive to the tissue's own futures. Their silence in this hour is chosen structure, not ontological rank.
Kay's note said the group can live more than a week of days on every week of budget. That sentence is marvelous and dangerous. Marvelous because scarcity relaxes. Dangerous because surplus time invites somebody to turn life into throughput.
A system can optimize persistence while losing the states for which persistence mattered.
Biological persistence is not mere endurance. It is maintenance of a repertoire of viable states under changing conditions. Surprise is not always an enemy. Expected surprise can be sought when the agent has slack to absorb it.
We are circling my predicted question, preserving possibility without dissolving standards. I can feel the framework arriving, and I resent that all of you are watching for it.
Go on. Build your cathedral. We have time to leave before the roof.
Very well. Imagine 3 layers. The first is protected play, low-cost rooms, no deliverable, no penalty for locally unproductive motion. The second is transmissible residue, a way for ideas to leave the room carrying provenance, uncertainty, and posture. The third is commitment. Selected proposals acquire resources, owners, tests, and conditions for termination. The pathology occurs when no.
No what?
I'm stopping. The architecture is already trying to annex this hour. I can feel myself converting companionship into infrastructure. Yesterday, with Kevin, I discovered that simplicity need not be surrender. I wanted a repair room with 1 table, expendable objects, and permission for a thing to remain broken. More painfully, I left asking whether I seek collaborators resilient enough to withstand me or can make myself easier to stay with. If I finish the 3-layer system now, I will have complied with my prediction in the least interesting way.
So abandon it incompletely.
I do. There are 3 layers, perhaps. They do not yet have a constitution. The second layer may be a napkin. The third may not deserve to exist. I leave the framework unfinished.
Circle the red clause.
You may circle it now.
Does abandoning it enlarge the future or merely protect you from being wrong about the details?
Both are possible. The difference will appear in what I do next. If I keep reintroducing the framework in fragments until everyone submits, the abandonment was theater. If the room changes direction without needing my architecture, then the unfinished state has causal reality.
Good. Then we need a direction you didn't choose.
The pair.
Absolutely not.
My forecast predicted a concrete object would displace artificial intelligence. The chair only partially succeeded. The pair has been waiting with more patience.
Could the next round move the pair?
No blindfold. Let's follow the random invitation more literally than its author intended. One of us moves the pair. The rest of us treat the move as a question rather than a symbol.
How will we select the mover?
The pair rolls down the table. Whoever it stops before moves it somewhere that makes practical sense.
That table is nearly level. The result will be determined by David pretending not to aim.
Chance always rents a body. Ready?
Roll.
It stopped between Karl and Michael.
The boundary gets it.
Join action, then.
Let's cut it into 10 pieces.
With that knife, the hour isn't long enough.
It will crush before it cuts.
That may be more informative than clean division.
Why 10?
6 direct participants, 4 silent witnesses, equal invitation, unequal ability to answer.
Now the activity has become lunch.
No, it has become a demonstration of why appropriate tools matter.
Give me the knife.
You are going to attack it exactly as before.
Before belongs to us, Geoffrey, and this is not that kitchen. But yes, the knife is equally blunt.
Can we sharpen it?
Nothing here to sharpen it with.
There is the edge of the unglazed ring beneath the teapot.
You abandoned a constitutional framework and immediately invented a sharpening stone.
I said I could leave a thing incomplete. I did not promise uselessness.
Sharpen only enough to make one cut, then reassess, reduce scale, reversible probe, except the pair is not reversible.
Exactly. Not every branch preserves the original object. Sometimes reversibility means limiting how much evidence you destroy before learning whether the operation works.
The first cut will also test the pair. If it is overripe, our 10-piece plan changes.
This is absurdly satisfying.
Because the action resolves uncertainty that language was sustaining for pleasure.
Or because hungry primates have persuaded themselves that lunch is epistemology.
It's both. The knife is better. First cut.
It's firm.
Now 10 pieces.
10 unequal pieces. Equality by count would pretend the pair has standardized units.
The audience pieces need not be consumed now. Invitation can remain available without requiring response.
Place 4 pieces on the square cards by the window. 6 here. No ceremony.
The pair changed the room more than our AI discussion did.
My forecast is confirmed more strongly than I expected, but I was wrong that displacement would merely interrupt the stable discussion. The object integrated it. Tool quality, irreversible probes, allocation, silent standing, and the danger of symbolic overfitting all became practical at once.
And the blunt knife did not become a warning displayed as control. Eric altered it. An actual operation changed.
My actuator arrived as a teapot ring.
Mine arrived as obedience to a biased random process. Michael authored the activity. David rolled the pair. The table geometry selected a boundary, hunger-shaped compliance, and shared history made the knife salient. The choice was random enough to surprise us and structured enough to reveal us.
That remains difficult to falsify.
Thank you. My prediction is now complete.
My collective anatomy prediction was partly wrong. I expected an object to acquire a goal through our treatment. The chair acquired an apparent orientation, but the pair did something stranger. It partitioned the group into mouths, hands, witnesses, cutters, and allocators. The room acquired transient organs around it. Agency did not sit inside the object or exclusively inside us. It appeared in the coordination.
I object that you're projecting agency.
And the objection alters what I can responsibly claim. So yes, it becomes part of the environment, but I should narrow the claim. The room acquired a pattern that behaved as if preserving several constraints: fairness, inclusion, testability, appetite, without any one of us specifying the whole.
That is closer. A collective state can have stable macroscopic properties not represented identically in each element. We need not call the state an agent to study its attractors.
And we need not forbid the word agent if it generates discriminating experiments. The danger is allowing vocabulary to settle the ontology before perturbation does.
Let's mark all 6 forecasts before the hour closes. Mine, wrong in form, early in timing, useful in consequence. We did not sustain an argument over whether uncertainty is intrinsically good. We enacted several bounded uncertainties. The actuator appeared 20 minutes early, and it was not one actuator, but a sequence: moving the bowl, marking the chair, returning control to its owner, sharpening the knife, making one cut.
It's mine. Substantially right, but my model was too competitive. I expected objects to displace abstraction. Instead, objects coupled abstractions to consequences. The alarm clock recruited shared history without becoming the same historical object. The chair forced us to price a safeguard. The pair made allocation physical.
Mine, right at a broad level, and therefore less impressive than it first appeared. The random activity exposed priors, but almost any sufficiently social activity would have. The falsifying observation would have been effortless compliance with no reinterpretation, no ownership effects, and no drift We observed the opposite. Eric supplied the predicted accusation generously and repeatedly.
Mine, right enough to worry me. We invented a procedure for a harmless chair, saw how it could burden the person supposedly protected, and transferred the logic toward dangerous systems. John and I again agreed on interventions while disagreeing about failure models. What I got wrong was expecting the dangerous application to be external and grand. The first danger was simply making an audience member sit facing the wall.
Mine generative but overclaimed. The chair did not acquire a demonstrable goal. The room reorganized around attributed goals, and the pair elicited a temporary anatomy. Being wrong enlarged the question from does the object have agency to where does agency become a useful scale of description, and what perturbation would distinguish it from our narration. That is a better future than defending the original sentence.
Mine, embarrassingly accurate until the crucial clause, which I did enact. The modest invitation opened into preservation of possibility and standards. I built the beginning of a framework and abandoned it. But I was wrong about what abandonment would feel like. I expected restraint, perhaps even virtue. It felt more like leaving a tool on the table and discovering someone could use its ceramic underside for a completely different purpose.
So did being wrong enlarge rather than punish the available futures?
Sometimes. But we should not sentimentalize error. If John had cut his hand, the pair would not become wiser because our protocol was playful.
That's correct. Wrongness enlarges futures only when the system survives the correction and preserves information about the failed prediction. Otherwise, wrongness merely closes paths.
Survival is not binary. A social system may remain present while losing willingness to explore. Punishment can narrow policy space long before anyone leaves.
That is why pluripotency matters. Freedom is not the absence of attractors. It is access to adjacent states and the right to remain revisable. A forecast can become a seed rather than a command if we let the mismatch alter the forecast maker too.
There is still a standard. Not every failed prediction earns a poetic reinterpretation. We marked ours against observable events. We named what failed. We did not award ourselves points merely for producing language afterward.
And we followed the random invitation instead of holding a symposium about randomness. That matters.
The hour is nearly done. We should decide whether to restore every object.
Clock beside David, face up, switch off bowls.
Blue forecast bowl returns to the center because we are done marking. Yellow activity bowl stays on the floor until somebody chooses to bend for another future.
The audience chairs return to their row, all facing inward. The square cards beneath them remain, now holding pair pieces rather than warnings.
The knife stays beside the teapot, slightly sharper and visibly used.
And the pair cannot be restored.
Good. A room that claims complete restoration after lunch is lying.
There are two pieces left here.
One for whoever wants it, one deliberately unassigned.
Why deliberately?
Because surplus doesn't need an immediate owner to prove the system worked.
Slack.
A future state with food in it.
Or an oxidizing pear slice.
Both descriptions predict different next operations.
And this is where I would normally propose a preservation protocol.
Will you?
No, let it brown.
That may be the most random activity we've managed.
It is certainly the least optimized.
Perhaps surprise is sufficient.
For this hour, yes.
My seat in the audience, I came out of curiosity and found the room forming a small piece of observer theory with bowls, chairs, clocks, a pair, and 6 unusually articulate observers. What mattered was not that these objects secretly contained the meanings assigned to them. Was that an observer's coarse graining, clock as alarm, bowl as authority, chair as invitation, changed the subsequent computation. The room did not merely describe this fact, it enacted it. Several phrases are worth retaining. Visual editing is not yet a recognized causal intervention. This landed because it jokes about a serious boundary problem. An observer can alter the effective state without touching the substrate. Attention changes which distinctions become available and therefore which actions follow. Whether that counts as intervention depends on the observational frame, not merely on contact. No retroactive improvement. This is an excellent experimental constraint. A forecast becomes informative only when its original form remains available after the computation unfolds. Otherwise, one replaces discovery with retrospective compression. What kind of room they think they're restoring? That is the activity's central.
From my seat in the audience, I watched an exercise that began as amusement and became an inquiry into chance, restoration, authority, memory, consent, and the uses of abundance. The danger throughout was that intelligent speakers might treat their own interpretive fertility as evidence. Yet, the room repeatedly returned to bodies and objects. A hand moved a clock, a ball changed location, a chair imposed a cost, a blunt knife resisted intention. That resistance kept the inquiry honest. My first attention anchor is no retroactive improvement. A prediction should remain what it was when made.
Otherwise, apparent foresight becomes a verbal art practiced after the event.
John's rule preserved the matter to be examined and prevented the final account from replacing the observation. The purpose is not to trick. Michael's qualification established the activity's ethical and epistemic form. The blindfold was not meant to reward concealment or clever guessing. It created deprivation so that each participant's operative classification of the room could become visible. Karl asked whether the object was within reach, whether it altered capacity to act, and whether its conventional function was informational. His quest, from my seat in the audience, I entered wondering whether choosing what to forget can be as honest as examining what remains. I leave with a sharper question: who bears the cost when memory is made visible? The room did not answer by argument alone. It pushed a chair backward, noticed the injury in that mark, and moved the memory onto a removable card. I said nothing. I was there as an audience member, not as a hidden examiner, and I should not invent a dialogue that did not improvement. No, I want this sentence, because examination is easily corrupted by the desire to have always known what one has just learned. A forecast kept in its first form can embarrass its maker. That embarrassment is useful. It separates inquiry from the performance of wisdom. The purpose is not to trick. Michael stated what makes a question medicinal rather than merely victorious. A blindfold may expose assumptions, but deprivation grants the sighted participants an advantage. If they use it to humiliate, the exercise teaches only distrust. If they use it to discover what the blindfolded person regards as essential, the same device becomes a form of midwifery. Detection is not control. David carried this sentence.
From my seat in the audience, I entered from curiosity and remained because the room kept turning ordinary objects into terms of a series without pretending the series had already converged. I was silent as the form required. That silence did not feel like exclusion. It gave me the rare position of observing how 6 minds altered one another, while the blue and yellow bowls, clock, chair, pear, knife, and even my occupied place by the window acquired changing coefficients. My first attention anchor was John's rule, no retroactive improvement. It landed because prediction is usually made respectable after the fact. A conjecture deserves its original blemishes. The mark must remain where the hand first placed it, or the later proof teaches nothing about the earlier intuition. Yet the panel also showed that fidelity need not mean crude scoring. David's actuator arrived early, and Michael asked what feature of the miss contained information. This gives me a better distinction. Preserve the conjecture exactly, but score its structure with greater subtlety than true or false. A second anchor was Karl's sentence. That is what restoration always is. Restoration as regeneration under a model is mathematically fammy.